Today's video looks into the political organization and evolution of one of Africa's most sophisticated and enduring kingdoms, the Buganda Kingdom, a history that spans centuries from the pre-colonial era when Buganda emerged as a dominant power in the Great Lakes region of East Africa, through the tumultuous colonial period to its dramatic abolition and eventual restoration as a cultural institution in modern Uganda. The Buganda Kingdom, located between Lake Kyoga and Lake Victoria in present-day Uganda, developed one of the most complex and centralized political systems in pre-colonial Africa. What makes this story particularly compelling is how this ancient institution negotiated with colonial powers, survived authoritarian suppression, and ultimately reinvented itself in the contemporary era. At the apex of Buganda's political system stood the Kabaka, a hereditary monarch wielding extraordinary centralized power. The Kabaka wasn't merely a political leader. He embodied the nation itself, holding multiple titles that reflected his supreme position, including Sabataka, meaning chief of the clan heads, and Sabasaja, meaning head of all men. The Kabaka succession followed patrilineal lines through the specific non-totemic royal clan of the Abalangira, Katikiro, the prime minister, and the Mugema, an important clan head, selected from among his sons. This system prevented any single clan from monopolizing power while ensuring capable leadership. Since the kingdom's formation, approximately 36 Kabakas have ruled, each contributing to the evolution of this sophisticated system. The Kabaka controlled virtually all aspects of governance. While he might consult chiefs and seek their advice, if it contradicted his wishes, he could disregard it entirely. He appointed, disciplined, and dismissed officials at will, inspiring tremendous loyalty among subjects and chiefs who understood their positions depended entirely on royal favor. His court at Mengo, where the royal palace, the Lubiri, stood, served as the kingdom's nerve center. This architectural marvel, an oval enclosure measuring approximately 1,000 meters across, contained numerous specialized buildings with symbols of royal authority including the throne, the namulondo, the royal drums, the mujaguzo, spears, and ceremonial stools. Land was the Kabaka's most powerful political tool. While the Bataka clan heads controlled some hereditary lands called Butaka, the Kabaka owned the vast majority of territory. All land belonged to the king alone. No sale of land was possible. Even when a person died on clan freehold estate, his successor required the king's permission before taking possession. This patronage system bound chiefs through land grants, creating networks of obligation and loyalty that reinforced royal power. Supporting the Kabaka was the Katikiro, who served as prime minister, a position formalized likely in the 17th century during Kabaka Katerega's reign. The Katikiro was the de facto head of civil service and cultural custodian, selected from clan heads or leading chiefs for wisdom, loyalty, and strategic thinking. His responsibilities were extensive: organizing tax collection, planning public works, coordinating military campaigns, protecting the Kabaka during warfare, and presiding over the Gambulola courthouse, where his word was often final, though appeals could reach the Kabaka. All state matters were first brought to him, and he either settled them or referred them to the Kabaka when opinions differed. Buganda proverbs still invoke the Katikiro as a symbol of trust and leadership. An example: 3 chiefs but 1 throne, referring to how the Katikiro, the Omwanika, and the Umulamuzi all served under the Kabaka. The Katikiro's privileges reflected his status. He built his enclosure near the main royal entrance, with the right of entrance to the inner courts for private consultations. He was seldom kept waiting for audience and maintained a large establishment in state, keeping open house for visitors. Like the king, he kept his own butcher and had courts, waiting rooms, and gatekeepers, making it impossible to enter his inner courts unannounced. Every newly appointed Katikiro had to construct a new residence called the Butikiro near the royal palace. His first public test demonstrating the capacity to mobilize clans and lead effectively. The Butikiro's proximity to Lubiri symbolized the intimate relationship between the king and the prime minister. The Katikiro had estates in each district, exempt from state tax, collecting his own yearly taxes. Both the Katikiro and the Kimbungwe, the king's twin guard, were called kings by commoners because they paid no tribute but sent representatives with the king's message during tax collection. The Umulamuzi, the chief justice, presided over court cases brought before the Kabaka. especially serious disputes involving clans, chiefs, or land. He interpreted customary law according to Buganda traditions and served as a check on other chiefs' power by investigating misconduct accusations. Although the Kabaka was the ultimate justice source, the Omulamuzi exercised significant authority, ensuring the legal system functioned smoothly. The Omwanika, literally the keeper of the storehouse, otherwise the treasurer, served as the kingdom's treasurer and core member of the Bakungu, royal chiefs. His duties included managing the kingdom's wealth from county tributes, food supplies, and valuable goods, supervising royal storehouses, ensuring the palace maintained adequate provisions, overseeing labor and tribute collection, and advising the Kabaka on economic matters. His power derived from the tribute system, making him among the most influential members after the Kabaka, the Katikiro, and the Omulamuzi. This position was later formalized through the Nkuluze establishment, the royal treasury, first established by Kabaka Daudi Chwa II in 1914. Buganda possessed a sophisticated parliamentary system called Lukiiko, composed of 89 members, the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice, 6 royal nominees, 60 clan heads, 20 county chiefs, and the treasurer. While officially advisory, the Lukiiko wielded considerable influence, comprising the kingdom's most powerful figures. The Lukiiko made laws, debated kingdom affairs, directed tax collection and planned expenditure, acted as the final court of appeal, represented people's needs to the Kabaka, helped in general administration, and checked governmental activities. Although the Kabaka could rule against his advice, he often found it necessary to heed his counsel since disregarding it completely could undermine his authority. Parliamentary procedures were highly formalized. When the king sounded a drum summoning chiefs, they assembled with the Katikiro and went to the courthouse called the Bulange, the parliament. Chiefs introduced themselves in strict order of rank, with messengers trained to remember every name and title. When the king entered, everyone greeted him with Gusinze, may you overcome, and bowed their faces to the ground. The Katikiro and the Kimbungwe sat on either side in front with the royal rug on their knees, while other chiefs sat in rows. Life and death were treated as of little moment. The king might bind, detain, or execute any chief at pleasure. Buganda's political system incorporated powerful female figures, providing balance, intelligence, networks, and diplomatic connections. Although an avowedly patriarchal culture, these women still held some degree of power. The Namasole, the Queen Mother, received her own palace, chiefs, and even her own Katikiro. Despite no formal governance role, she commanded enormous respect. From Kimera's time until Suuna II's reign, she couldn't even see her son after the coronation, maintaining strict separation between matrilineal influence and royal authority. As an expression of their love for their mothers, new Kabakas frequently took a name derived from their mother's name as their official name. This name became part of the pool of names in the royal clan. So Kabaka Suuna was the son of Nasuuna of the Maamba clan. Kabaka Jemba was the son of Najemba of the Ngonge clan, and Kabaka Nakibinge was the son of Nababinge of the Ngonge clan. The Namasole's brothers played crucial roles. The one titled Masimbi served as her representative to the Kabaka, symbolically carrying a shield and spear, demonstrating readiness to defend the king. The one titled Saabaganzi consulted traditional doctors concerning the king's health. The need for this is not evident since the Kabaka had his own daughters, but he did it nonetheless. Together with 9 sisters and 9 brothers, the Namasole formed the Banakazadi Bakabaka, an internal security organization scattered throughout the kingdom, detecting plots against the monarch, essentially functioning as royal spies. The Lubuga, the queen sister, was another nationally prominent female figure with her own compound within the royal palace. Along with the Namasole, she played a key role in selecting the next king upon a Kabaka's death. Royal women also engaged in diplomacy through strategic marriages, forming alliances and stabilizing the political system. The Nabagereka, the queen consort, was a 20th century invention. Previously, the king's principal wife was called the Adulubaale, with less national prominence than the Lubuga and Namasole. King Daudi Chwa II first designated his wife as the foremost woman using the new Nabagereka title. symbolizing unity and modernity while giving more prominence to the queen consort. The Kimbugwe, second in importance after the Katikiro, served as the guardian of the king's umbilical cord called the twin, maintaining a sacred temple and performing monthly rituals. When a king died, the Kimbugwe went out of office to continue guarding the deceased king's twin. The Nabikande and Bayoma, sisters of the Queen Mother, served as her chief attendants and midwives for the king's wives, giving them intimate access to royal baths and significant influence. The Mugema, called the father of the king, was one of the few hereditary chiefs serving as Katikiro of the dead and governing the Busiro district, containing all royal tombs. Both princes and princesses were important figures within the royal and political structure, with specific rights, responsibilities, and social roles, depending on their rank. The eldest prince and princess received special titles. The first prince, Kiwewa, and Nasolo for the first princess, who settled disputes among the princesses. Princes, the Abalangira, were groomed for the throne through a secret selection process, with a special council advising the Kabaka on potential successors. The princesses, the Abambeja, the general title for any female member of the royal clan, were forbidden to marry or bear children, preventing competing succession claims, with some exceptions. For example, high-ranking chiefs being gifted princesses. Despite this lack of a formal political office, the princesses could influence politics informally through their relationships with the Kabaka, participation in clan affairs, and serving as mediums or ritual wives of gods. Buganda kings could have hundreds to thousands of women in the household, divided into ranks. A Kabaka would marry women as far as present-day Eastern Congo to Western Kenya. The king's wives were classified into three categories: the Abakyala, the highest rank; the Abasebei, the intermediate rank; and the Bazana, the lowest rank, serving political alliance functions. Other specialists in the royal court included the Musenero, the chief butler; the Mfumbiro, the chief baker; the Senkole, the guardian of sacred fire; the Kaula, the drummer; the Nsadinja, the king's priest and guardian of the royal horns; the Omukweya, the head carrier during journeys; and the Omusoloza, the keeper of firewood. Uganda's administrative structure demonstrated remarkable sophistication. The kingdom was divided into 20 counties called Sazas, each governed by a Saza chief appointed directly by the Kabaka. These were further subdivided into Gambololas under a Gambolola chief, then Miluka under Miluka chiefs, and finally Kisoko, the smallest units. Vassal states were governed by Batongoles appointed by the Kabaka. There were 12 important chieftainships called the Bakungu Abamasaza. It comprised 2 chiefs with no districts and 10 district chiefs to govern the 10 large districts, separated by rivers, swamps, valleys, or gardens. They were the Katikiro, the prime minister with no district; the Kimbungwe, the guardian of the king's umbilical cord, had no district; the Kago Sabadu, to the king, governed the Chadondo district; the Mukwanda Sabagabu, to the king, governed single district; the Sekibobo Sabawali, to the king, governed the Chagwe districts, which was the richest and most prosperous; the Kangao Mwongozi, to the king, governed the Bulemezi district; the Mugema, the king's father, Nakazandi, Katikiro of the dead, governed the Busiro district; the Kaima for Mawakota district; the Kitunzi for Gomba district; Pokino for Budu district; Kasuju governed the Basuju district that catered to princes and princesses; and Katabala governed the Butambala district, which was hereditary in the Sheep clan. Initially, hereditary county chief positions became royal appointments, ensuring accountability, a crucial political innovation strengthening royal control. Chiefs served as both political and military leaders responsible for revenue collection, general administration, and warfare. Ranking was determined by the number of people under the chief's control, and remarkably, social mobility existed. Commoners could rise through ranks based on excellence in war and administrative ability. Within each district existed a clear hierarchy. Owesaza, as the district chief; Mumyuka was the most important sub-chief within the superior rank. Third order was Sabadu, fourth Sabagabo, and fifth Sabawali. These men governed large areas with numerous small chiefs under their control. The Abataka clan heads occupied special positions, managing clans, guarding land, collecting taxes, conducting military conscription, and presenting page boys to the Kabaka. Commoners, or the Mukopi, served under chiefs and fought wars, while slaves, called Badus, served kings and chiefs in homesteads. Page boys and the Bagalagala, sons of chiefs and nobles, served the Kabaka directly, receiving training often leading to eventual important appointments. Buganda's judicial system followed structured procedures rooted in customary law. To initiate a case, a plaintiff paid 22 cowrie shells, called ekanam, to the chief's court. Before cowries, a goatskin served this purpose. This payment symbolized claim seriousness and secured the chief's authority to summon the accused. Before judgment, both parties paid preliminary fines of a goat and backcloth each. The chief reviewed evidence and delivered verdicts based on customary law. If convicted, defendants paid fines, court costs, and compensation to plaintiffs. Appeals followed a strict hierarchy, first to the Katikiro's court, then to the Lukiko before the Kabaka served as the Supreme Court. Still unsatisfied, parties could request trial by ordeal, a dramatic process overseen by the Omulamuzi, where the Magunda, the keeper and mixer of the ordeal, would first prepare liquid madudu, an alcoholic beverage from crushed berries. A dry leaf was placed at the boundary, both parties drank until intoxicated, and whoever first jumped over the leaf and gave thanks was declared innocent. Punishments varied significantly by offense. Adultery laws were particularly severe. If caught with another man's wife, the husband confiscated all property-sharing spoils with the village chief. If the woman was a chief's or king's wife, both partners were executed. Theft originally carried death sentences, later replaced by 100% fines. Theft involving the king's wife remained a capital offense. All sales required third-party witnesses, receiving shares of proceeds called endobolo, creating comprehensive verification and protection. Taxes varied. Selling a woman cost 1 female goat, a servant 1 male goat, a cow 50 cowries. Chiefs received portions of fines, goats, backcloths, cowries, and even enslaved offenders, strengthening their wealth and authority. This system functioned not merely as punishment, but as a mechanism for maintaining social harmony, reinforcing political authority, and embedding justice in everyday life. Buganda's military organization was remarkably effective despite having no standing army. Every adult male contributed to defense. Chiefs were both administrative and military leaders in their regions. In war, chiefs called up all male adults to contribute militarily, though a royal bodyguard was maintained at Kabaka's court. The Kabaka was the commander-in-chief with authority to declare war and ceasefires, and the Mujasi was the commander of the royal army. Each king in Buganda was believed to possess a jembe, a powerful spiritual object, which made the king a hero by assisting him win all the battles that were staged on him and outside the kingdom. The Buganda were brave, warlike people, consistently aggressive and alert to engage surrounding nations. The slightest provocation served as a pretext for punitive expeditions, gradually increasing territory. Hope of obtaining spoil made every man anxious to participate. Military campaigns followed elaborate rituals. A messenger from the war god advocating a punitive expedition was often the first step. Chiefs were sent with presents to the gods, asking advice about conducting war, and choosing a leader. God named the person chosen as general, sending blessings and fetishes by representatives accompanying the army. When appointing a general, the Kabaka sounded his drum, the entami, the drunkard, summoning chiefs. The appointed general sprang up, brandishing his spear, swearing allegiance. A man, even a superman, may attack me, but I shall utterly destroy him. The king presented him 2 spears and a shield, royal spears made of brass or copper, as a solemn trust. The general took the oath, walked down the court, rushed at the king with blade turned away, knelt within a few paces, saying, "I am a man. I will either kill every enemy I meet or die in the attempt. I will not return empty-handed." At the war drum in the royal enclosure, chiefs took up the rhythm in their enclosures, sound carried in an ever-ending circle. Within a short time, all war drums country citywide were sounding, and the whole country was up in arms. The army was expected to collect in 4 days, so within 10 days it was on the frontier waiting march orders. Army organization was highly structured with specific formations. On the general's left marched Pokino. At the extreme end, Katambala. Next, Lubuga's assistant third, Kitunzi, the county chief fourth, and Mukwenda, another chief last, next to the general. The Raima division marched in front. On the right was Kalabalaba, the lieutenant general, meaning one who sees sharply or scout. Behind marched the Sekibobo and Kagwa, both chiefs, the Namasole's assistant, Kimbugwe's assistant, and others. Before battle, warriors underwent a cleansing ceremony, a sham fight. A banana tree stem was placed in the road, and warriors armed with banana leaves, midriffs, rushed out, spearing it and making a rush toward enemy territory, brandishing makeshift spears and shouting defiance. Each person jumped over the stem and then returned to quarters. The army survived through systemic plunder. Daily before the march resumed, plunders went ahead, looting food, bringing it to camps. Combat itself was somewhat disorganized. Warriors hurried in advance, fighting single-handedly or rushed out hurling spears, then fleeing back to the main body for protection. War spoils underwent 3 distributions. Okukuba and Bwagula, where division captains made first choices. Okukuba, Omuambiro, where the general selected through official messengers. Finally, Okugereka, where spoils were divided proportionally by counties. Ivory received special treatment, being secretly carried to the Kabaka by the general himself. Discipline was strict and brutal. If a man ran from war in fear and was caught, the general ordered him burned. As an example, should a shaka not be punished by death, he was dressed like a woman with a decayed banana stem bound behind him, imitating a woman giving birth, taken about so people might see what treatment cowards expect. Conversely, each warrior killing an enemy took his weapons and wore a brass crown, intimating the fact. Distinguished men were brought before the general for special notice, often rewarded with women, cattle, or promotion to chieftainship. The Buganda Navy controlled Lake Victoria, known to the Buganda as Nalubaale, the mother of gods, with an impressive fleet. Gabunga was the admiral, and all chiefs whose boundaries touched the lake were bound to own canoes. There were 104 canoes under Gabunga's direct jurisdiction, though the full fleet, including chiefs and fisherman vessels, numbered 10,000, representing a formidable force giving Buganda control over the lake's commerce and military operation. The introduction of Islam in 1860s by Arabs through trade and Christianity in 1870s and 1880s by missionaries fundamentally transformed Buganda's political system. Kabaka Mutesa I had written a letter to Queen Victoria on the 14th of April in 1875 under the guidance of explorer Henry Merton Stanley, inviting missionaries to Buganda. Religious affiliations would soon replace clan membership and merit as the criteria for political office. Mutesa's successor, Kabaka Mwanga II, was not affiliated to any religion and even demanded that his page boys denounce their faith. Having refused, Mwanga II ordered their execution. They would be known as the Ugandan martyrs. These religious civil wars between 1888 and 1889 led to the Kabaka's unprecedented overthrow, demonstrating religious loyalty now superseded royal authority. Traditional hereditary chiefs were removed from power, fragmenting the previously unified kingdom into competing Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim factions, each allied with foreign powers, ultimately destroying centuries-old clan-based governance structures. By the late 19th century, Buganda had experienced decades of internal upheaval involving missionary activity and civil wars between the religious factions. Yet, it remained the strongest kingdom regionally. When the British sought to formalize control, they couldn't simply impose terms. Buganda's literacy, political sophistication, and military capacity demanded careful negotiation. Uganda became a British protectorate in 1894. At its center was the Buganda Kingdom. The Ugandan Agreement, signed on March 10, 1900, fundamentally transformed Buganda's political structure. While establishing Buganda as a British protectorate, it recognized governance, created a constitutional monarchy, and defined roles for Kabaka, ministers, and the Lukiko. The agreement required Buganda's chiefs and people to cooperate loyalty with Her Majesty's government in the organization and administration of the kingdom. British Special Commissioner to Uganda, Harry Johnston, characterized Buganda as the only power capable of threatening British rule, describing Buganda as fairly intelligent and possessing about 10,000 to 12,000 guns. The agreement aimed to secure British power by binding Buganda's political elite to the protectorate while positioning military forces around the capital, ensuring compliance. The land settlement proved most transformative and controversial. It created fixed Milo estates for the political elite while declaring the majority of owners as tenants of the Buganda administration. This fundamentally reshaped Buganda's social structure, creating a new landed aristocracy dependent on British authority for maintaining privileges. From the beginning, ambiguity plagued the agreement. Was it established as a quasi-diplomatic relationship between British and Buganda? Was Buganda merely a subordinate administrative unit? This question fueled conflicts for decades. After 1900, Britain governed Buganda through modified indirect rule, built around Kabaka, Lukiiko, and chiefly hierarchy. Chiefs retained authority over customary law, tax collection, and local administration under British resident oversight. To many observers, Buganda appeared an exemplary case of indirect rule, though others argued it was either too autonomous or too directly controlled to fit the model properly. The ruling oligarchy, negotiating the agreement, led by figures like Sir Apollo Kagwa, serving as Kaatikiro for decades, dominated the government, creating an entrenched aristocracy with enormous power over land allocation and local administration. The Lukiiko remained largely a forum of elites' interests. The British relied on this oligarchy to implement policies but occasionally clashed, notably in 1926, when a dispute between a British provincial commissioner and Sir Apollo Kagwa resulted in Kagwa's forced resignation, illustrating the limits of chiefly autonomy under indirect rule. During the interwar period, roughly between 1918 and 1939, indirect rule intersected with new developmental and welfare-oriented goals of the British colonial state. Chiefs were increasingly required to enforce centrally designed regulations in agriculture, health, forestry, and taxation. The central government formed by the British needed efficient services delivered and increased supervision over chiefs, often contradicting indirect rule and eroding chiefly autonomy. This trend intensified after the 1945 and 1949 riots, exposing deep grievances among commoners against both chiefs and the protectorate government. The 1900 agreement significantly altered the political structure, enhancing Lukiiko's power while modifying Kabaka's absolute authority. The Lukiiko gained new functions and a more formalized governance role. By mid-century, the Kabaka had replaced many clan heads with appointed officials and claimed the title Sabalangira, head of all clans, centralizing power even further, but now within a colonial framework. Decades before independence witnessed Buganda's determined efforts to retain a privileged position within the emerging Ugandan state. Demands concerned self-determination, land rights, relations with the rest of the protectorate, and protection of the kingship institution. As calls for African political participation intensified in the 1930s and 1940s, colonial power realized that indirect rule through traditional administration couldn't harmonize with popular participation and democratic governance. Administrative and institutional reforms were adopted, preparing for independence, though the process accelerated faster than the British anticipated 30-year timeline due to the popular demand and international pressure. Political parties only emerged in the 1950s, having been restricted by colonial authorities, arguing multi-party politics would breed sectarianism, regionalism, and instability. Neo-traditionalists from Buganda particularly viewed political parties as enemies of kingship, fearing Kabaka and chiefs would lose power under regular elections. Prior to independence, the kingdom became increasingly resolute in demanding self-determination, proposing either that the Kabaka became Uganda's head of state or that Buganda secede entirely. Consequently, the kingdom boycotted independence elections. Only 3% of Buganda's population voted, demonstrating the depth of separatist sentiment. The independence constitution in 1962 created a semi-federal system, attempting to balance competing interests. Buganda achieved full federal status, while the kingdoms of Ankole, Bunyoro, Toro, and the territory of Busoga were granted semi-federal status. The rest of the districts were accorded unitary status with the central government. This challenging foundation consisted of elements of Unitarianism, federalism, and semi-federalism, supporting Buganda as a strong unit within Uganda, but creating a complex foundation, peaceful united nation. A 1963 amendment provided for a ceremonial president as head of state, with elections limited to hereditary rulers and constitutional district heads. The first ceremonial president was Kabaka Mutesa II, who simultaneously functioned as king for Buganda and president for Uganda. This dual role created considerable antagonism between the constitutional president and Prime Minister Milton Obote, eventually leading to the kingdom's abolition. Shortly after independence, the tensions between Prime Minister Obote and Buganda Kingdom escalated dramatically over power sharing, constitutional authority, and allegations of gold smuggling from Congo. In 1966, Obote suspended the independence constitution, imposing a new one significantly strengthening the central government control. Kabaka Mutesa II was removed from the presidency and Obote declared himself executive president, fundamentally altering Uganda's constitutional order. Conflict peaked on May 24, 1966, when the Uganda army commanded by Idi Amin attacked Kabaka's palace at Mengo. The assault was so fierce, resulting in significant casualties. Kabaka Mutesa II narrowly escaped being forced into exile in Britain, where he later died in 1969, never having returned to his kingdom. The 1967 constitution abolished all kingdoms, entrenching a unitary republican state, eliminating Buganda's autonomy and dismantling its institutions entirely. Buganda faced intense political repression under Obote and later Idi Amin, who seized power in 1971. Efforts to restore the kingdom were halted by authoritarian regimes, viewing traditional institutions as threats to centralized control. The palace at Mengo was occupied by military forces. Lukiiko dissolved, and chiefs lost official positions and much authority. During the National Resistance Army's 5-year guerrilla war against Obote's second regime from 1981 to 1986, the government operated mostly in the Luwero Triangle within Buganda. Many Buganda supported the NRA, providing recruits partly expecting victory would lead to Kabakaship's restoration and recognition of Buganda's special status. Prince Ronald Mutembe's visit to liberated zones strengthened this alliance, raising hopes among Baganda, though NRA's leadership later denied promising to restore political monarchies. When the National Resistance Movement took power in 1986, Buganda expected kingdom restoration as recognition for support. However, the NRM rejected monarchism because it would promote sectarianism and ethnic division, insisting that national unity required limiting ethnic-based politics. Despite initial government resistance, monarchist movements, both moderate and radical, grew rapidly among the Baganda. Radicals demanded a king with political powers resembling pre-colonial arrangements, while moderates advocated purely a cultural institution. Political pressure intensified as the Constituent Assembly approached in the early 1990s. The NRM needed Buganda's support to ensure the continuation of the movement and limit multi-party politics. To avoid confrontation and secure Buganda's cooperation, the government agreed to constitutional amendments allowing the restoration of cultural institutions. In 1993, the National Resistance Council passed amendments allowing cultural institutions, restorations, and returning some kingdom properties, though with strict limitations on political activity. On 31st July 1993, Prince Ronald Muwenda Mutembe II was crowned Kabaka in an elaborate ceremony in Budo, though explicitly with no political authority whatsoever. Buganda revived many pre-1966 structures, the Lukiiko, various ministers, and traditional offices including Katikiro, Omwanika, Omulamuzi, and county chiefs. But these carried no constitutional power. They could not make laws, collect taxes, or exercise judicial authority. The restoration represented a compromise. The kingdom would exist as a cultural institution preserving traditions, language, and identity, but without the political autonomy and governmental functions it once possessed. Current Katikiro, Charles Peter Mayinga, appointed in 2013, exemplifies this modern role. He is known for visionary leadership and the Etofaali development campaign that focuses on cultural preservation, community development, and mobilizing resources to Buganda's cultural institutions. The Nkuluze Trust manages kingdom finances while various ministries coordinate cultural activities, education initiatives, and developmental projects. After restoration, Buganda pushed vigorously for federalism, seeking political and fiscal autonomy within Uganda. Allied with mainstream political parties that also supported federal arrangements, Buganda became a major force in Constituent Assembly deliberations from 1994 to 1995. The kingdom mobilized massive support among the Buganda population, with federalism becoming a rallying cry unifying diverse political factions. Initially, the NRM government signaled openness to federalism, quoting Buganda's support for maintaining the movement system of a multi-party democracy. However, once NRM secured preferred constitutional provisions on the movement system, it reversed its position, promoting decentralization within a unitary state instead. Buganda's leadership and population felt deeply betrayed by what they perceived as calculated political manipulation. Federalism re-emerged as a contentious issue during the presidential elections in 1996 and 2001. Members of Buganda's leadership, including some traditional officials, openly supported opposition candidates, promising federalism implementation. However, President Museveni still won majorities in Buganda, signaling the kingdom's declining political influence and the complexity of Buganda's political allegiances. Government-appointed commissions periodically revived debate on traditional leadership and federalism, leading to mass pro-federalism demonstrations in Buganda, particularly in Kampala and surrounding areas. Yet many regions outside Buganda opposed federalism, fearing Buganda's economic and political dominance would marginalize other ethnic groups and regions. In response to continued pressure, the government proposed a regional tier system, a diluted form of autonomy lacking fiscal independence, clear legal authority, and meaningful political power. This proposal disappointed Buganda federalists, viewing it as another empty promise designed to placate demands without granting substantive autonomy. As President Museveni consolidated political power through constitutional amendments removing presidential term limits and increasing centralization, and as federalism remained unresolved despite decades of advocacy, Buganda's influence in national politics weakened significantly. Today, Buganda Kingdom operates fundamentally different from pre-colonial glory, yet it remains a vital institution for millions of Uganda. Kabaka Ronald Muwenda Mutembi II holds no political authority, cannot make binding laws, collect taxes, or exercise judicial functions. Yet the institution remains profoundly significant, demonstrating the enduring power of cultural identity and traditional legitimacy. Contemporary structure mirrors traditional forms while adapting to modern realities. Katikiro serves as the chief executive of the kingdom's cultural administration, coordinating various ministries which function essentially as civil society organization, implementing programs through partnerships, fundraising, and community mobilization rather than taxation or legal authority. Lukiiko continues meeting regularly, comprising clan representatives, counties, and various constituencies, debating cultural policy and development initiatives. Without taxation powers, the kingdom depends on voluntary contributions, commercial activities, and strategic partnerships for revenue. The Etofaali campaign represents the kingdom's most successful fundraising initiative, encouraging every Muganda to contribute monthly towards development projects. Through Etofaali and related initiatives, the kingdom has constructed modern headquarters, established radio stations, supported education through scholarships, and developed commercial properties, generating sustainable revenue. Beyond formal structure, the kingdom performs crucial social and cultural functions, explaining its enduring relevance, preserving and promoting the Luganda language, maintaining traditional ceremonies and rituals, providing cultural identity and social cohesion, and advocating for Buganda interest within constitutional restriction. Buganda's political organization featured a strong but balanced monarch, a structured parliament, and organized judiciary, and an effective army. Despite colonial disruption, abolition, and later restoration, these institutions have adapted and survived, illustrating the kingdom's resilience and its continued influence within Uganda's modern political landscape. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and comment below. If you're interested in learning more about pre-colonial Africa, consider subscribing. Thank you for watching.